What's up, bikers? Episode 211 of the Biker Bar podcast. And let me tell you, it's been a minute. I've been AFK for a little bit. Definitely was a good break though. I needed a little time off. So went on vacation with the lady, came back, went to Sea Otter, been raising some money, and ran into some pretty cool people like today's guest. We're gonna have Dylan on from TBD Bikes, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. In the meantime, I want to tell you a little bit about what else I've been up to. Those of you guys that know, I've been raising money for a nonprofit called Disconnect to Reconnect. And where the hell is my man? You would think I'd have this shit down by now, but I don't. I think I lost my browser. I did. Here it is. Cool. So, anyways, I've been raising money for this nonprofit called Disconnect to Reconnect, and basically, what we're trying to do is buy a fleet of e-bikes to help vets out. So, if you haven't been on my channel in a while, I just released a video that is a longer version of what's on the fundraiser website. And basically it talks about the camping event that we did. Disconnect to Reconnect does all kinds of stuff like surfing and hiking and all kinds of different activities, but obviously I'm just involved in the mountain biking. But yeah, if you're thinking that that you have some extra money that you want to use for a tax write-off, swing by this webpage that's in the description and help us out. Aside from that, I've been riding RE bikes. They just released the Temp, which is their new electric their new e-bike. It's the 170, and I'll tell you what, man, I'm pretty stoked about this. Actually, a lot of the things that I didn't like about the old one, they totally took care of. So I got one hopefully on its way here soon. Anyways, if you're thinking about a full powered e-bike, this honestly, I think this and maybe one other brand is what I'd be interested in right now. I wholeheartedly really like what they got going on here. Outside of that, Tasco MTB, they were at Sea Otter, and they have a new set of gloves that have little magnets in it. So like you could like not have to drop your glove on the ground whenever you're stopped for a minute. You can like magnet it to something, or you can keep them together in your drawer that way. It's kind of a cool little idea. And unfortunately, they're not on the website. So if there's a contact button on there, tell them what's up with the magnets. Anyways, I swung by the sale site, and there's some pretty damn good deals on here. Like if you just so happen to be a large, this shirt's only $20. Outside of that, good old Cali Protectives just released a new colorway. It's called Lightspeed. Looks pretty sick. Those of you guys that are listening, lots of purples and pinks in it, and then on a black helmet. So yeah, swing by, use code B1Cali 30 and save 30%. And on Tasco, use B1KER. Forgot to say that. Man, it's been a minute, obviously. Let's bring Dylan on and let's talk about bikes. It's gonna be much easier. What's going on, dude?
What's up, man?
So I bumped into you at Sea Otter, and honestly, I would have walked right past you because I don't really ride DJs that much. So it wouldn't have stood out to me what you were holding, and you're walking around with this bike that you made. And it was because you were having this conversation with somebody next to me that I was like, man, this is really sick. So, first of all, who are you? Where you live?
Well, my name is Dylan, and I live in the Bay Area. So I go back and forth between a couple houses because my parents are divorced. But
Mhm.
yeah, I've had a love for bikes since I was pretty young. I used to play ice hockey as well, and I kind of just enjoyed biking a little bit more. And so now I tried to put all my effort into biking. And I met a couple friends that love doing the same thing, and they always support me on my projects. So that's kind of what we wanted to do. Is I've had an idea of making a bike for a while, and I'm a big procrastinator, so I procrastinated until 12 days before Sea Otter, and I said, "Hey, we got to make a bike before Sea Otter." So that's kind of what we did.
That's right, man. So, those of you guys that aren't familiar with the Bay Area, when he says that, it's San Francisco Bay Area. So he's here in Northern California, and so you say you're a procrastinator, but I mean, getting down to it, 12 days before Sea Otter to make a bike. What started all this? Like you're obviously you don't just wake up 12 days before Sea Otter and like, hey, I'm gonna learn how to do all this stuff.
Right. So, I mean, I've been doing CAD and 3D printing and all this sort of stuff for quite a while. Since I got my first printer when I was about 10, it was a Monoprice Select Mini, which is a little cheap $100 printer, right? And it started from me just watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and I told my dad, "Hey, I want a 3D printer." And when you're that young, I feel like you don't really know what you're talking about. It's just kind of like whatever, right? But my dad
Yeah, you just
ended
want
up
to
buying
want to
me.
make some toys or something like that, right?
Right. He ended up buying me a 3D printer, and we 3D printed a couple of like gadgets and like fidget spinners and just random doodads, right? And I ended up having to learn CAD because we started wanting to make our own stuff for around the house and kind of little trinkets that might help out your daily life, right? Like a light switch cover or something like that, right? Just save you a little bit of money. So my dad made me learn some CAD softwares. And so that's kind of how I started to build up my skills and over time I ended up really falling in love with it, and it's kind of my passion now, right? I enjoy making things that help people out, and that's kind of where my background is at, just doing the CAD and the 3D printing, and now I'm starting to go into more CNC work. But yeah, so I had the background in that, and because of that, I had like, an idea to make my own bike for a long time, and that's kind of been around just floating in my head for, I'd say, about a year or so. And my original plan was to start in January to build the bike for Sea Otter, and I kept on pushing it off because I was busy or I just didn't want to do it or I didn't have time. And
Right.
then I wake up and 12 days left, and it's like you gotta get something going. So I just put my mind to it, and once you start the process of making this stuff, it gets a lot easier, you know.
Yeah. So um I started 3D printing probably, I don't know, a year or two ago, and it definitely was pretty big learning curve. So I, like you, used a lot of YouTube videos to try to learn what I was doing, and fortunately there's a lot of resources out there. I'm assuming when you're saying CAD, or you're using Fusion is what you are.
Correct. So I started with Tinkercad. It's just the easiest thing, and it was free online. It still is free. It's just browser based. And then you realize you can't really do much in Tinkercad. So then I use Fusion because it's a lot more. You can just do a lot more stuff within it. You know.
Yeah, whenever I first got mine, what I wanted to do is like design this like chest mount for a GoPro. And so my initial thing, my like was for the 3D printer, was to like build something that doesn't exist. So initially, like I didn't even start with printing anything. I think the first thing I printed was obviously like a benchy, just because I was like, I don't know how to do anything. So those of you guys that aren't familiar with 3D printing, there's a little boat that everybody prints. It's called they give it a nickname, the benchy. So it's usually
Benchmark
included in
test
the,
is kind of what it's
yeah.
for.
That makes sense. I never
Yeah.
even actually put that together. So benchmark test.
So
That's awesome. See?
like the benchy, it has certain features of it that sort of test your printer in some ways, like the
Hmm.
overhangs of how the boat is and like a couple of the arcs and the curves. With FDM printing, you get these aspects called stair stepping, where each layer needs to go more and more for like an overhang. So that's why you generally don't want to print over a 45-degree angle, right? Or I mean, you can, it depends on the material, but the more you do that, the more stair stepping you get. So when you print the benchy, it can kind of show you where the limits of your stair stepping are for the first for certain materials, and it can kind of show you some stringing too if you know where to look, you know. But
So that
it's
stair
supposed to be a
stepping,
benchmark
we're
test.
going to do a lot of explaining for a lot of people, because most of these people that are listening to this are into bikes and not into printing, right? So the stair stepping, what you would see then is a lot of lines in the print, right? The
Correct.
more it is, it doesn't look like a nice smooth plastic as much. It'll look a little bit more, I guess 3D printed would be the best way to explain it. I think
Right.
most people are familiar with the way that looks nowadays, but yeah, no. So I printed that, and then I just started designing. So what I wanted to do though was make sure that I was using a program that wasn't gonna like hold me back. And I also am like, as much as I like to procrastinate like you, I'm also really fucking lazy, right? So I don't want to learn two softwares. Like I didn't want to learn one and then figure out it wasn't good enough. And most of what I saw online, it seemed like that Autodesk Fusion was like the way to go, and it's free.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
um,
it's still free, but I definitely think there's some limitations with the free version of Fusion. So I just use the student version, but yeah, I'm kind of planning to buy the full version pretty soon once I can get enough money for that. So be pretty
so
good.
basically, you're into riding bikes, and you're also tinkering around with 3D printing. And somewhere along the line, you decide that it sounds like it's a good idea to like make your own. I mean, some people may not have seen the thumbnail whenever they're listening to this. So realistically, you didn't print the entire thing. You printed
No,
like
yeah, I
kind of
mean,
like the joints, right?
correct. So like I really like the look of how those Atherton bike look or the Atherton bikes look. They just I think they look really futuristic and modern and like sleek, right? And so I wanted to kind of copy that aspect, and it would also be easier to print those smaller parts versus printing the entire tubes, right? So I
Right.
was like, let's do something like that. And I originally wanted to make a full suspension bike, and then I realized 2 weeks is a really short amount of time. So a dirt jumper is a lot easier. But so yeah, a dirt jumper is easier, but it's got some downsides to it as well. It's the parts are a lot bigger compared to a full suspension. But yeah, it basically all the lugs are 3D printed out of PA12 nylon, which is a type of nylon that is more commonly 3D printed than than others. I mean, there's variations of nylon that have different attributes like better strength or better durability, or it's more ductile, more flexible, right? And so I used PA12 because that's just what we had and easiest to print for us. Um, and I printed all those lugs and then adhesively bonded them to carbon fiber tubes using a 3M adhesive.
So where do you get this carbon fiber tubing from? You can't go to
Um,
Home Depot and pick it up.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, um, I got it from this company called Easy Composites. They make a ton of YouTube videos about how to do composite like making on YouTube. But I originally wanted to have something more local to the US because they shipped from the UK. Um, but it turns out carbon fiber tubing is really, really, really expensive. So, I decided to go with them because they had the cheapest prices, even with the shipping included. Um,
Hmm.
I just I don't really know what I'm looking at when we're doing carbon fiber tubing as well. So I just thought their tubes look good and they have pretty even sizes. So I just went with
Hmm.
them just because it's the easiest.
So in your mind, you're like, okay, I know I need to make these angle like what you called lugs, right? Is what you called them.
Yeah.
So the lugs, for those of you that are like thinking about it, that are just listening, is just like anything where the corners are, right? So he has like the top tube going into a kind of like a head tube lug that has, the space for the fork to go through, and the down tube and the top tube. So then it's like kind of looks like a little K. And then you all have, some different angles throughout the bike that's holding all these tubes together. Um, so how did you, I mean, obviously it's really easy to come up with the idea like you're going to use carbon fiber because it's light, and
Right.
that it's like used in other bike frames. But how did you decide on what material to use actually for those lugs?
So I kind of So PA12 is what I used, right? But that's the only material we have for our SLS printers, which is so the printer that I use is very different from what most people would traditionally think of a 3D printer as. I use this a Formlabs Fuse One, and they call it an SLS printer because you're not laying down individual layers of plastic. You're sintering a big bucket full of powder, which means you essentially have a laser that melts tiny puddles of powder together and creates each layer, right? So your layers are a lot finer, and each layer fuses with the layer before it a lot better than traditional 3D printing, right?
Hmm.
So I used a printer like this because I don't have to worry about support material. I don't have to worry about anisotropy, which is having like defects with how the print method is with the layers. All of the
Hmm.
layers fuse, so it's like having a perfectly injection molded part. So it's very isotropic. Um, And then I also use this because the printers are a lot bigger and I can print all the parts at once. Um, but yeah, so P812 is really easy to print on these SLS printers. Usually you need an inert gas to print other materials, but yeah, because we already had P812 set up and it was just they're kind of ready to go. I was like, let's just do P812.
So the real kicker about you that I didn't mention yet is that you're a high school student, right?
Well, kind of, yeah. So I was a high school student, and um, my thing is, I just thought high school wasn't really working out for me. So I got my GED, and I ended up going to community college. So now I'm at a community college now.
And you're how old?
I'm 16.
16, right.
Yeah,
So you're definitely in the high school age range. And
correct.
but I'm sure that the people that have been listening so far have definitely were not thinking that there's a 16-year-old talking to them in the in the vocabulary that you're using. Like you're pretty put together, and obviously you know a lot about what you're doing. How did you get from the point of being a high school student to deciding that, like, hey, this isn't going to work for me, I'm going to go to community college and work through that instead?
Yeah, so I think it kind of started in my sophomore year of high school. So I was still at high school, it was 10th grade. Um, and there's this teacher in my English class. So we had obviously my English teacher, right? And then there's another teacher that was helping out. And he came to me with an opportunity to work on some industrial printers that got donated to our school. And that's usually pretty uncommon too. But he knew I liked to 3D print stuff, and those printers weren't really working. So there was a company that donated a Stratasys like Stratasys is one of the big industrial 3D printing companies, and there's
So
a
your school
company
had some
that
kind of program for printing or something like that?
no, it was just a we don't like the only program that has 3D printers at my high school was the engineering program, but apparently an English teacher somehow got his hands on a donated industrial printer, so he
So it
asked
had
me to work
nothing.
on.
He just knew that you liked printing from like talking to you or something like that. And
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
so it wasn't
He
like there was like a printing or a fabrication kind of like path or class or
right.
something like that that this guy taught.
Yeah, our engineering program still needs a lot of work. It's based off like I think it's like a nationwide organization for engineering, but it's called Project Lead the Way. And
Uh-huh.
it's just teaches, I guess it's at most schools, I think, but it's just a baseline of how engineering works. And each class is kind of it goes over a different aspect of engineering, right? So like the first class is very CAD based. The next class is very like there's a little bit more mathematics to it. Then the third class is more electronics based. So it introduces kids to different aspects of engineering. But that's the only program at my school that has 3D printers that kids are actually able to use.
Hmm.
But lucky with the fact that another teacher got some 3D printers and asked me to work on them, right?
Right. So he's got
Anyway,
this thing set up at school and he knows that you like the 3D print. So he's like, hey man, you want to come and fool around with this thing?
right. So I end up working on those industrial printers for quite a while. It's like 4 or 5 months, and we get a little group of kids together that all kind of know 3D printing, and that's where I kind of get my I that's where I get my foot in the door to industrial printing. That's more higher end materials, more expensive. You got to deal with contracts, and I realize these printers are like really nice and they're really fun to use, and it's very different from traditional 3D printing, right? I mean, your materials are a lot stronger. You have more design flexibility because they have support material that just dissolves away, which traditional 3D printing for home use does have that, but it's a lot more tricky to kind of put in, right?
Yeah, so
So that,
what he's talking about there, I just want to explain that real quick to people that aren't familiar with 3D printing. So like as you're printing something, it's printing from the let's just say the floor up, the base plate of the printer up. And as things are maybe going up and then out, they need some kind of support to hold them up into place while they're being created. So like if you were like let's just think of like with like a one of those traditional like waffle ice cream cones that you see, and they're kind of like skinny in the middle, and then they like tear out, and then they go up. So that spot that would tear out, that needs some support material underneath it. Otherwise, it's possible that the plastic could like droop. So then you wouldn't have that nice like 90-degree angle. So normally in a 3D printing situation, whenever you get to that kind of space, like you need to, or once you've printed it, you need to pull that support material off. So the printers that he's talking about, because they're in a bunch of you just said it's all the material, it's like a dust basically.
That's for SLS. For Stratasys printers, they specialize in it's still FDM, which is like extruded plastic material extrusion. But they have a special material that is water soluble. So it's like a mix of water and some other chemicals, right? But you
So it
essentially
just
put it
cleans up really well.
there,
Like with a
right?
regular traditional 3D printer, which most of you probably understand what it looks like, or you've seen it on YouTube or something like that. Like that's the FDM that he's talking about. It's just like the normal run of the mill cheap printer. And basically, when you're done printing something, you have to break all these supports off. So these nicer printers that he's talking about, you don't have any of those supports. So then one of the downsides to supports is that when you break it off, sometimes there's a bunch of crap you need to clean up to make it look good. Where this is going to print, and it's just going to look like it's manufactured like as soon as it comes out of the print.
Right. I mean, you'll still have those layer lines, but you can have a much more accurate part to like your CAD file, right? Because your CAD file is the perfect version of your part. But like obviously you're gonna have variances throughout the print, but you'll have the variance will be a lot less than compared to traditional run-of-the-mill home 3D printing, right?
Right.
So
So you were you doing that engineering program at your school or no?
yeah. Yeah, so I was doing
Okay.
the engineering program as I was doing this other 3D printing thing, and that's
Hmm.
like I said, where I got my foot in the door to kind of introduce me to this type of 3D printing, right? And I also wanted to learn CNC machining at the time as well. So I had a CNC machine at home that I was kind of using, and I wanted to learn more about both of these aspects, more industrial applications uh, of of like 3D printing and CNC machining and rapid prototyping. So that summer, I looked online. I said, where can I take machining classes? And Dienza Community College, which is in Cupertino, California. It's pretty close to the Apple HQ. They offered classes for machining and 3D printing and um, that sort of stuff. And I was like, well, I'll try to give it a shot and see how it goes, right? So I took my first summer class there, and I ended up falling in love with it. And I realized after the summer class that their way of teaching and doing general ed along with this sort of stuff is a lot better for how I learn compared to what my high school was doing, right? So I
Yeah.
was like, let me figure out a way to be able to go there full time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming that they probably do something similar. When I was in high school, I actually went to a community college as well, because every class that I took in the community college would give me 3 times the amount of units for like high school. So I could like similar to you, like rapid fire my high school and graduate
Right.
faster.
I mean, I could have also done something else that we offer at my school called middle college. Um, and that's like just a program that the high schools run with community colleges to essentially do the same thing and like rapid fire through. But
Hmm.
the downside with that is um my grades weren't like super good. So in order to do that, you essentially have to have between like a 3.9 and a 4.0 or like a 3.8 and a
Hmm.
4.0 GPA, right? Because they only take a certain amount of kids and they want
Right.
those kids to be like the best of the best, right? So and I wasn't really that school was never really my strong suit. I was more interested in just doing my own thing in 3D printing and doing stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, my only other option is kind of getting my GED and going there myself, you know?
So you just go and you're like, obviously your parents probably have to sign something or something like that, and you're like, I just
Correct.
want to take my GED and be done with it, and that's all you have to do to get out of high school early.
Pretty much. I mean, so it took me a lot longer than I thought, because you have to have a you have to have a form of ID that's like government issued, and I have three passports, and all of them were expired. And I didn't have my driver's license at the time, so I basically had no form of government ID that has a photo. I couldn't use my birth certificate, so I was basically screwed until I either got a passport or I got my driver's license. So I waited until I
Uh-huh.
got my driver's license in January, and I did my GED test like a month later.
Right on, man. So is one of your parents an engineer or something like that? Or like what was it that sparked this like for you? Or was just purely you were like just a kid watching people print shit online and you were like, I want to do that.
Yeah, I kind of forget how like I came across it. Um, I'm pretty sure there was this guy on YouTube called Make Anything.
Hmm.
Devin Montez, I think was his name, but he used to live in California. But anyway, he made this thing like he called it a squircle, but it was like this square, and you would put it in front of a mirror, and when you flip it around, you'd have a circle like that's facing you, and then in the mirror it would be a square, right? And I kept
Hmm.
on watching that video over and over and over again, and I tried to figure out how he would design it, right? And
Hmm.
he ended up releasing a video like a week later that showed how he designed it, but I never found it till like a year later.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what sparked my interest, and I was like, how would you make something like that, right? And I kept on watching more and more of his videos, and I realized he does a lot of 3D printing and CAD design and that sort of stuff, right? And that I think what kind of sparked my interest. And I told my dad at that point, hey, I want to try doing this myself as well. And my parents are usually pretty supportive of what I do. So my dad ended up buying me a 3D printer when I was around like 9 or 10 for Christmas. And
Yeah.
that's how we kind of started printing little trinkets around the house, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool to me. It's just very interesting how you kind of came to it and got to where you're at. So then obviously that spurred you just going down a rabbit hole of learning. And
Right.
apparently
You
you
keep
had a lot
on,
of time to do it.
yeah. Keep on getting your skills better. And there were a lot of weekends I'd just be sitting at my desk and working on CAD models for my dad or for myself, and I just wouldn't be able to figure this shit out, and I'd be crying because you can't it just doesn't work, right? And over
Yeah.
time you kind of learn how these softwares work, and you can kind of think as if you were the software, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if
It's really interesting to me for you to be like um the age that you were like kind of going through that process of learning it. You know, it's just it's it's maybe it's easier as a kid. I don't know. I just know as an adult, like it definitely wasn't like it wasn't like what could I equate it to? Like it's not simple. You know what I mean? It's
right,
it's it's definitely some complex like ideas and thought process to it.
it's not super
And
intuitive.
yeah, yeah. And you definitely have to think about things completely in a different way because let's just say with 3D printing, it's not like you don't build things the same way that you would build like something out of wood, you know? So you
Correct.
have to like kind of think about extruding, which is like I'm trying not to use too many like 3D printing like terms so that most people can understand it, but there's just
Yeah.
concepts that you definitely have to have a different mindset to think about how to create those things. And
Right.
I agree with you wholeheartedly though. Once you kind of get that, like once I went through that process of trying to make that chesty for the GoPro that I wanted to make. And once I learned how to like create something in that software, it really did change, like it changed everything for me because
Right. You
there was
you
so
end up
many.
being able to look at things in a different way, and you can like just whatever you see just around you, you can probably like 3D print a variation of that to make it better, right?
Yeah, and for me it's a lot of like it's a problem solving tool, you know, and it's like where is I don't have them right by me, but this light that's on in the background behind me. So it's like that those LED lights that are on that wood thing that I built. And I needed a way to mount those LED lights in a way that I could string it all the way around that whole design. So I printed like these basically like they kind of look like little tees, right? But like a bar of tea. And so then that way I could screw them into the back of the wood, and then I could tape like the LED light strips have like adhesive on it, and I could just wrap it around that. And for me to make that, like, there's no such thing as that. There's no, like, you can't go on like Amazon and look for like a light LED light strip tee. You know what I
Right,
mean?
doesn't really
In
exist, right?
exactly 10 millimeters wide. It's like, but when you know how to 3D print, you look at that issue there, and instead of like just being like, oh well, this is all I can do is just stick them on here this way. It's like, no, you can completely just make something that doesn't even exist. And
Right, like,
sometimes
you
it's
can just
something really
will
like
things into
abstract
existence.
like that, and other times it's something really practical, like I don't know. In my truck, I 3D printed a little thing that fits in one of the spots in the console, so that it
Mhm.
holds my chapstick standing up, because it's super hot out here in California, and if the chapstick is standing up, it won't melt all over your car. But if it's laying in there and you just it gets hot, then it'll be like melted chapstick all over the inside. You know,
Right.
so
It's always useful stuff like that that I feel like makes me the most proud of what I design, right? Like I used to think when I was younger, like my designs have to be super complex or they have to look really cool. But it's like as I'm like getting older, I realize the best designs are the ones that are simplest that just get the job done exactly how
yeah,
you want it, right?
yeah,
And it's like no matter how small it is, as long as it just does it really, really well and to the best of its ability,
yeah.
then it's just super cool to do, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting over time. The other thing that happens is, like, sometimes I'll be on Amazon looking for something to buy, and then all of a sudden it'll like dawn on me. It's like, dude, that's plastic what you're buying. Like, you can just
Right.
make this. Like, you
Just make
don't
that
need to
oh my
buy
god,
this,
like
you
yeah.
know? So
I feel
yeah,
like I'm
no, it's
always
really
arguing
interesting.
with my stepdad about that because it's like he's always like he does a lot of 3D printing too, but I'm trying to like show him 3D printing is a lot more broad and there's a lot more stuff than you can 3D print than you think, right?
Yeah,
And obviously you have to design your thing so that it 3D prints the best that it can. But it's like we're trying to design this kind of box that goes on top of our van for Starlink, right? So for SpaceX's Starlink, we're trying to get that for the van, but because it's outside of the van, we need like this rubber seal. And so we kind of kept on talking about is we can get this rubber gasket that's pre-made, right? But I'm like, dude, 3D printers can print in a in a TPU rubber. Just print the gasket, and
yeah,
so that's I think what we're gonna end up doing. But we're essentially gonna print a gasket for this kind of like box that opens up and has all of the electronics inside, right? And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like 3D printing is more than just printing rigid plastic materials. You can print flexibles. You can print materials that have better impact strength. You can print compliant mechanisms, right? So like things that flex and you use the material properties to your advantage, right?
right, right,
So
yeah, and it's just it's an endless possibility of things that you can do, and I think that the more that you do it, the more that you think of other things that are like, just it's just odd, most I have printed very few things that were already designed by somebody else. Like, every
mhm,
once in a while it'll be like, oh, I need a Garmin mount or something like that, or
right.
like a GoPro, like all those little pieces for the GoPro that people buy all the time. They're like crazy expensive if you buy them from GoPro. You can
Mhm.
print your own, and it's going to cost you like cents, compared to, I mean, obviously you have to buy the printer, but you can get like pretty decent FDM printers for a cheap price now.
Yeah, you can get like a CR10 or an Ender 3. I think Ender 3s are probably like the intro printer if you want to like learn 3D printing. But I think there's also an aspect of 3D printing that's like, would you rather have 3D printing as a tool, or would you rather have 3D printing as a hobby? And so would you rather like
Mhm.
fix the printer or upgrade the printer or do things to a printer, or would you rather use a printer to print things that those things then help you, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where the difference is now in the hobby industry or the hobby like 3D printing world is you can still buy an Ender and they're still decent printers, but now you've got printers like the Bamboo Lab that will just print super reliably and there's virtually zero setup, right? And you don't have to
Yeah.
struggle with bed leveling or with Z offset, first layer calibration, right? Like just
Yeah. All that
that
stuff.
sort of stuff that just kills your time, right?
But even those, like, so to give people an idea, a regular printer, like that Ender is only like what, 200-300 bucks,
Yeah, you can probably buy them for
something like that.
less
Yeah.
on Amazon or something.
So Bamboo Labs, the one that he's talking about, to get kind of like the setup that you would that you would probably want, is like 1,500 bucks. So it has this ability to like use different colors, and it's like this fully enclosed thing. And but there's other ones out. Like I actually just picked up a new one, and I got this. It's called Anycubic, and it's
Okay.
basically like a Bamboo Labs clone. And
Yeah. You got the K1, right?
yeah, and the only difference, like the thing that really sold me on it, is the price. Like I got it, like they just launched it, so it was only like 500 bucks.
Way
And then
cheaper.
also the AMS has like a built-in like a dryer. So
Oh, is it really?
those of you that don't know, you want to keep your plastic like in a dry environment, or if it's humid or it gets too much moisture in it, it can like not print as well. So this thing has that all built in, and it's still only 500 bucks. Like for $500, like I can, like, aside from just like being something fun to do, I've definitely printed over $500 in things that like have paid for my printer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's worth like the investment of a 3D printer,
Yeah.
right? And
Even if you're a
like,
person that doesn't want to like design their own shit. Like you said
right,
earlier,
right,
like
right,
you could be like, "Oh, I want to change all my light switches to black." Yeah, you could just
right.
print them all. You know what I
Just
mean? Like,
they come in. There's a lot of post processing that you could do, but coming like right off the bed, there's a lot of just stuff that you can print off of like Thingiverse or printables or Maker World or something like that, you know. And it's
yeah.
like nowadays you probably don't even really have to learn design unless you want to do like super unique stuff. Like you could probably just find most of what you want to print on the
Yeah.
web, you know.
Yeah,
So
100%, man.
and
I mean,
there's
like,
like more parametric stuff that's kind of coming out now, right? Like you can download a model on printables and then you can put it into a CAD software and you can put it into your CAD software as like a modifiable mesh file. So it's not really an STL, right? It's more like a step file. And then it introduces these parameters and you just change the parameters and it automatically updates whatever model you want. And you don't have to redesign the model from scratch. You can just download a model, change it, and then stick it back in your slicer, right?
yeah, yeah, I've done that a few times where it's like somebody has done most of the work for me, and I'm
Right,
like, but I don't like this part, or it doesn't do exactly what I want it to do, or shaped exactly the way I want it to be shaped, and then I just modify it and
right.
print it.
Like at that point, your modeling skills don't have to be like super top tier, right? Like you don't have to be
Right.
an industrial designer to be able to make things that you still want to do, right?
There's so many things that you can just print for free that are like, it's worth it just to buy, just to do it in that aspect. You know, like what you were saying,
Percent.
like just you could print like picture frames, you could print freaking like, let's just say like cups for like putting your pens in or organizing your tools, or you could print like a light, you know, like you could print so much,
Right,
it's just ridiculous.
right. I think one thing people don't really consider when they print though is like we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the fact that like when you print stuff, it's a very different way of printing things, and so you have to consider the way that it prints things and the layer orientation. And it's like that's a little bit more complex, but I feel like over time, as you start printing stuff, that gets a little bit more intuitive. It gets you just kind of learn, oh yeah, I need to have the layers like going in this direction, or I need to add an overhang kind of thing here so that it can print without support, right? Um, and that goes back to designing as well, but that's a lot of like you'll learn that as you just keep on kind of 3D printing
Yeah,
stuff. It's not
that's
just as
definitely
simple
something,
as
you know, I
printing
didn't
code.
think about that I do now, that when I'm designing, where before I would have a lot of supports that I needed because I used a lot of like 90-degree angles, right? But now it's like,
Right.
oh, well, if I just give this a little bit of an angle, just a little tiny angle, it's enough
Mhm.
that I don't need supports at all, you know?
Right. and it might even make your part stronger too, or maybe look a little bit better. Or it's like, I mean, like the technical term for this is DFAM, so DFAM, Design for Additive Manufacturing, and this is like a whole field of study that people can do, right? And that's actually part of the classes that what I'm doing at Dienza right now is I'm studying DFAM aspects for different types of 3D printing. And
Hmm.
that's like it's in every single form of manufacturing, but it's just something that gets really like overlooked because people just think it's something you can press go and it'll just print. But it's like you have to consider these aspects. And when you're new to 3D printing, like for example, my teacher was doing a consulting gig and she introduced 3D printing to a company and they took their injection molded parts and they printed them. But obviously those injection molded parts aren't optimized for the print method. And so over time you can see different, like, I guess you'd call them generations, and you can see how the parts go from being very square, very 90-degree to being more like curvy, or they have overhangs that don't require supports, right? And it's like you could have the same part but have it optimized for different methods.
Yeah.
And um, it just, you have to consider that when you're 3D printing or doing any sort of manufacturing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So, how'd you get into cycling?
Um, yeah, so that's I feel like I really picked it off during COVID, like how most people did. I mean, I did a lot of biking before that. Um, I just wasn't doing it really as much. I had a hockey teammate introduce me to BMX racing, so I would do some BMX racing at Santa Clara Powell, like the BMX track there. Actually, I'm gonna go there tonight, but yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, so I did some racing there, got to intermediate and kind of just stopped because at the time I was playing both ice hockey and kind of BMX, and just doing both was a little bit too much. Um, and then that was slightly before COVID. That was like my first intro to, I guess, biking as like an action sport.
Hmm.
But for a long time before that, my dad was really into road cycling. And around
Hmm.
like I'd say 13, 14, he started to take me out onto road rides. He got a he got this bike called the Thesis. It's like a kind of like a custom bike, but not really.
Yeah.
Apparently the guy makes like the all of the same parts on like the same assembly line, so they'll kind of fit in like a perfect way, right? But he got a thesis and gave me his old road bike, which was a Cannondale R1000. And I'm really proud of that bike because it was made in 2008 and I'm born in 2008, and it just has a lot of
That's cool.
sentimental value to me, right?
Yeah.
But I, yeah, I started to ride that, and we started going on road bike rides almost every day. We would have our kind of usual loop that doesn't have a lot of cars, and then that was also before COVID. Around the same time I was BMXing, and once COVID hit, we kind of got a group of neighbors to come together, and we would just bike every single day before COVID school, right? Like, so the online school and whatnot. So we would
Right.
either go to a mountain bike ride, or we would go do a road bike ride or something like that, right? Just to get some exercise and be out of the house, because I
Right.
think for everyone it was just kind of a pain staying inside the house, like during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
as COVID started to die down, I think I just started doing a lot more mountain biking and dirt jumping and more BMX kind of freestyle sort of stuff, right? And I like I was still done with BMX racing just because I didn't have time to pick it back up. But I was doing
Hmm.
more stuff on my own, and I was building some trails that were local to my house and
Hmm.
going in the woods with my friends and whatnot. And I found a group of friends at school that do this stuff, right? Um, and that's after COVID. And I kind of just kept on riding and building trails
So,
and working on jumps and
so
stuff.
for kids your age nowadays, like, is cycling like a pretty mainstream thing that like people, a lot of people do, or is it not really? Because like when I was a kid, there was a bunch of us, like, we rode BMX around town, and we, like,
Right.
essentially like dirt jumping, and
Yeah.
maybe some freestyle stuff, but it really wasn't like a large population. It was kind of like you were like a little bit of a, not an outcast, but it wasn't like super normal. You know what I mean? Like for
Right.
people just to really be into biking, but
It's like,
but I feel like it was more probably than it is now, because it seems like so many kids now are like really just on electronics, you know?
Right. Like they're all on Instagram or on their phone, right? And I feel like that's still kind of the case with a lot of kids nowadays, but I think more kids are using uh their social media to their advantage, right? Like they can post videos about how they bike or race
Hmm.
videos or and kind of get that spotlight, right? But I'd say definitely more in like I'd say probably like the 80s and 90s too. I got a neighbor that rode a lot of BMX when he was young, right? And he would tell
Hmm.
me these stories about riding BMX in like the 90s, right? And I feel like BMX at that time was a lot bigger, but
Hmm.
nowadays I'd say mountain biking and dirt jumping is a lot more common for kids to do, right? Like they'll just
Got it.
go. We've got this kind of mini, I guess, park near our house, but it
Hmm.
goes in the mountains a little bit, and so there's a bunch of kids that are always up there like every single day, you know.
Right.
So I'd say it's more mountain biking now, right? But yeah.
Got it. Got it. That's rad, man. So you basically like really got into cycling during COVID, or
Mhm.
and then at the same time you're doing this, like learning how to print and whatnot. When was it that you actually decided that like you thought that this could, like, that you could actually make a bike? Was it like all along and you just were procrastinating doing it because you're busy, or was it like an aha moment where you were learning something at school and then you're like, you know what, I can actually like build a bicycle out of this?
I mean, I've always been like, I mean, I mentioned before when I would design stuff when I was young, I would always think they'd have to be cool or complex or they'd have to be like just wow like the wow factor, right? And
Right.
so I've always had like an idea in my head to do something that's just unique. And like at one point I wanted to make an astronaut like helmet for Christmas. And I
Hmm.
tried to design that. It didn't really work out, or for Halloween actually, sorry. But it didn't really work out. And then I wanted to make um I wanted to make shoes out of TPU. And I
Uh-huh.
haven't really started that yet, but I've still got that idea because I feel like I can print a shoe in one shot on like a bamboo lab. Just if I
Like a
orient
croc
it
or something
right.
like that.
Right, like a more like a sneaker, like a very similar to what Adidas did with like the Ultra 4D, but instead of
Got it.
printing just the sole, I print the entire shoe as well. So I'll have like a lattice sole and I'll have the shoe on top will be just very thin layer of TPU, right? So I've
So he knows,
always had
so you guys know TPU is like the rubbery stuff that you can print. So
thermoplastic polyurethane is what it's
yeah.
called in the long format. But yeah, it's commonly used on shoes and stuff, but that's what we can use for gaskets or for seals and whatnot. But I've always had like ideas to print ambitious stuff and kind of push the boundaries of uh, what most people might think is possible with 3D printing.
Hmm.
And then because I was biking a lot, I was kind of like, what if you can make a bike, right? Like it's got to be possible. And I've seen a lot of things on like forums and stuff of generative design bikes, which is using AI to help optimize where material goes for bikes. But those were all like concepts, right? And it's like
Hmm.
when I start to look at that stuff, I'm like, can I make a more traditional looking bike um, using 3D printing? And
Hmm.
I had that idea for maybe a year to a year and a half before Sea Otter this past year, and I was like, Sea Otter is going to be the best place to get maybe some attention,
Hmm.
and I was like, let's try to make something before Sea Otter and just see how it goes, and kind of made it work, and
So
it's pretty.
the bike that you were pushing around, like, can you ride that? Like
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the dirt
yeah.
dump
So
park, it's not gonna break? Like,
I mean, I'm not sure if you have the photos that I sent to you, but I was riding that around. Those weren't just like
yeah.
action photos, right? I was riding that around in a skate park bowl, and I gotta say it's very sketchy to ride. I wouldn't recommend people make this bike and try to ride it as like a regular bike. If you were to ride a 3D printed bike, I'd say probably ride it as like a commuter bike. That could
Hmm.
probably hold up. But yeah, so like this bike is a lot stronger than what you would traditionally manufacture with an FDM printer because obviously the SLS is more isotropic, and it just makes all the layers a lot stronger together. Um, but yeah, no, the bike rides and it's sketchy. It flexes when you ride it, and I'm worried every second that I ride it, it's gonna just snap and I'm gonna face plant into the ground. But
So what's flexing? Your lugs are flexing, like
yeah,
in or
so the carbon is all pretty rigid, and then the main part that flexes is the bottom bracket lug. So like that's the biggest part of the bike that I kind of struggled with the most. It was
hmm
connecting the chain stays to the bottom bracket, and then having the bottom bracket go up and to the side for the down tube and for the seat tube. Um,
hmm
so the main part that's flexing is the connection between the chain stay and the bottom bracket. That kind of flexes down, but it also has some give left and right. So when you stand up and pedal on like how you would for a dirt jumper, you can feel it the bottom bracket lug kind of flex to the left when you pedal on your right side or vice versa, right?
right, right.
And that's the part that kind of scares me because nylon is usually pretty ductile. You can like it does flex a little bit, but I'm worried I'm gonna flex it too much and it's just gonna like break to the side and I'm gonna hit
Yeah,
my head
yeah.
hard or something, you know.
Because
So
when it fails, it's gonna fail like catastrophically. It's not gonna like
yeah, it's gonna fail pretty
come apart.
spectacularly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm hoping to get that on video, and after this, we're probably gonna go to PAL and maybe manual it a little bit or see how that goes. So we'll get that on video and I'll post it on the Instagram later.
So realistically, the problem that you're having right now is because of the material that you're using.
Correct. So, for V2, my plan is to kind of do more of a aluminum version. I want to have aluminum lugs, and I'm still debating on whether or not I should do carbon fiber tubes or aluminum tubes. I mean, traditionally, dirt jumpers aren't really made out of carbon fiber tubes, and I think a lot of people like it like that, like they don't want the carbon fiber tubes, but I don't know. I think it makes for a stiffer dirt jumper, so that if you like try to press into a jump to get a lot of pop, you can probably get more of that energy transfer through the lip, right?
So
So
what
I
you're
think,
gonna do then is you're gonna machine those parts then instead of printing them.
yeah, I'll have. Well, I've got a couple of ideas. For the next version of the bike, I want to make a bike that uses all forms of traditional, or, I mean, all forms of manufacturing, right? So I want to make at least one investment casted lug, which would cover casting, right? And investment casting just allows you to do a lot more complex parts. I want to do a metal 3D printed lug, maybe two of them, and then the rest of the lugs will be CNC machined, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of my
So
plan because
do
I
you
can.
have that ability to print metal at your school, or is that something you'd have to like get
No,
contracted out?
that's super expensive to do.
Yeah.
Like you kind of so for printing metal, it's this process called there's a lot of processes for metal, but the most common processes are called SLM or DMLS, and that's very similar to how I printed my powder or like my nylon lugs, but just with metal, right? And there's a lot more DFAM that goes into that because metal is just a lot more tricky to print. So you have to
Mhm.
consider how the heat kind of moves and where to put supports and stuff. Um, but yeah, I want to print a couple of metal lugs, and I'd have to probably third party that for my project because for printing
Yeah, I
metal, you
work
need.
for my day job is working for a robotics firm, and we make some ROVs that go down in the bottom of the ocean, and there are some parts on our ROV that we have printed that are metal.
Yeah,
So, and I knew that it was expensive, and I knew that it's some that we don't even do in shop. Like
yeah.
we build the rest most of the rest of it we all manufacture in at
Mhm.
work, but that was one of them. So I was really curious if you had access to something like that at school.
No, like even so we had a speaker that came from Maxar once and they were talking about how they 3D print lugs for their space satellites and even them they don't have a metal 3D printer at their kind of
Yeah,
headquarters, right, which is just in Mountain View here. Um but it's really expensive and it's really hard to maintain because you need essentially a clean room, because you can't have any of the metal powder get onto your skin. So you need to be wearing a suit. You need to have inert gas that kind of um, makes the metal like not as not as like deadly, I guess,
Yeah,
because those fine kind of metal powders and it gets onto your skin, it irritates your skin, or you breathe that stuff in and it irritates your lungs, and it's very hard to get out, right? So you need a clean
right,
room, you need to wear a suit, and you need to have like the printer itself, right? So the facility itself is like really expensive, and then the printer itself is also really
right,
expensive, right?
right.
So just for most
Yeah, I
companies,
would
it's not
imagine
really
there's
good.
a day in the future whenever there's a 3D printer in everybody's house that looks like your like microwave. You know what I mean? And
Right,
kind of like, and this is just like me like thinking about how things are and kind of expanding into the future. And like I see a day when you just go to Amazon and you buy things at Amazon and then they just print at your on your printer. You know what I
mm,
mean? So it's
yeah,
like you're like, oh, I want some new like plastic forks for this picnic that we're going on. And it's like, oh, here you go, click, and it's like, bzz, you know, and then
right,
there you go.
right,
It's like there's the design for you, you know, and I mean, right now, like, yeah, there's a lot of free shit out there, but and I'm sure that'll be there in the future as well. But there will be a class of people that don't really want to go through any of that effort, right? So it'll
right.
be like,
And I think it'll be a little bit different from that though, because I feel like that's kind of we were talking about this in class, like we were having a little discussion about this, but it's like there's like a curve that shows um like there's the excitement part and then there's the part where you have to invest a lot of money to make it good, and then at some point this new technology will find a place in society. And I
right,
think we're kind of, if you just take AI for example, you're kind of at the point where you think AI will take over everything. It's going to take away people's jobs. It's gonna
right,
like just do everything, right? And then we'll realize, oh wait, AI can't. It can do a lot of stuff, but it can't do literally everything, right? And then
right,
after that, you'll find a time where humans and AI can like humans can use AI in a productive way, which I mean, it's already being used pretty productively, right? But it'll be used in a way that um it might take away a lot of people's jobs, but it might not like necessarily take away every job, right? And I think that's the same thing with 3D
yeah,
printers is 3D printers might not like replace everything, but it'll replace most things, right? Or it'll replace a lot of things, right? But there still be that need for CNC machining or for injection molding and just different applications of manufacturing. It's not going to replace everything, but each thing will have
yeah.
its use, right?
Yeah, who
So,
knows? Who knows what it does? I mean, there's
right,
like if you really go down the rabbit hole, there's the potential that it could replace every job. But like,
correct,
what does that do? That like just completely changes humanity, right? So then it's
exactly.
like, yeah, well, we don't need to work anymore because we have all these machines that do
Stuff,
everything for us. And then you just
right,
you go out and just try to live like an enlightened life of some sort, you know,
right.
and you know, who knows if that's possible. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans. Somehow it's like we'll find a way just to blow each other up instead. But like,
I feel like in my eyes, that's just not really a fun life. I'd rather be doing something and using my hands to make something that inspires others, right? But
yeah, and
yeah,
that could still be your enlightened life though. So then it's like instead of having to go to work every day to like figure out how to pay your bills and get food, you know, you're gonna like get up and just try to make cool shit because that's what you're into.
right.
And maybe somebody else is like just wants to go ride bikes and that's what they do. And it's like
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like who
Videos and
knows?
stuff
Like
like
that's the perfect utopia situation. The other end of it
that.
is like who knows? It's like really ends up driving classes far apart and who knows? At this point
Yeah,
though, it's really interesting to think about and kind of see like where the future goes. So as
I
you're
think
considering like this, so you're what kind of program are you working through in the community college?
so it's this, they call it DMT, so Department of Manufacturing Technologies,
Hmm.
and it includes 3D printing and CNC machining. We're trying to get more automated robotics in there because that's where the industry's kind of headed, is more
Hmm.
automation, and reducing, not necessarily reducing like machinist jobs, but like optimizing the workflow, right?
Yeah.
And that's all about what like manufacturing is kind of about now is how can you optimize every single process so you can make parts as fast as you can or as accurate as you can or whatever your goal is, how can you optimize that to make it the
Hmm.
best and the fastest, right? And so
Hmm.
that's what our program is going towards. It kind of it teaches you the base and then it teaches you how to optimize, make things better. How do you um like just there's a class that I'm doing that talks about opportunistic defam and it like it goes over there's regular defam where you have like just regular rules and how to make overhangs and reduce print failures. And then you have opportunistic defam, which kind of goes over, well, you know the rules now. How can you kind of use the rules to make stuff that's even better than what you can make with the rules, right? If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. So what's your end
Yeah.
state? Your end state is like you want to be an engineer, you want to run a bike company, you want to like like right now you have this TBD Bikes, which I think is really clever name by the way. Uh like is that like maybe your pie in the sky idea right now is like, hey man, whenever I finish school, like I just keep working on this and I can actually turn this into a business.
I mean, so okay. So our goal for right now is to work on so it's not just I'm like I do a lot of the kind of the designing and the manufacturing, but a lot of my friends are really into biking as well, and they're all willing to help out. So
Hmm.
all of the videos are edited by another friend because I don't know how to do that, nor do I want to. So I just make the bike and I 3D print the bike, but he edits the videos. And then I've got another friend that has a machine shop, and he said, "Hey, if you want to machine parts, I'd be happy to machine parts for you." And so that's kind of like they all kind of are willing to help me out, but
So you have a
yeah, my
YouTube channel, or you're just putting this on like Instagram, or you like a bunch of different
yeah,
platforms?
Instagram for now.
Okay.
I think we'll do YouTube in a little while. It's just we're gonna focus on Instagram because we just want to make content for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I get it.
But yeah, no, the end goal is I
I'm
want
gonna
to end
give
up
you the
getting
same. I'm gonna give you the same advice that I gave Sebastian from normal MTBR. Um, if you're already making reels, just put them on YouTube as well, because it's like the same thing.
yeah,
Like it
fair
doesn't
enough.
make any sense not to do it. So grow the
Right.
audience there. And he actually told me later down the road, he's like, "You're actually the reason that I started putting stuff on YouTube." And look at him now; he's got a couple
Yeah.
100,000 followers.
Right.
So
Right. Right. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. No, that's a good point though, because I was thinking YouTube is more like long format, but
yeah,
no, like we're doing a lot more short format videos now, like less
yeah,
just scroll through like TikTok style,
yeah.
right? Um, so yeah, if I'm making them for Instagram, I might as well do it for YouTube too, right?
Right. So
Yeah,
just drop them in whatever the platform is. You know, I think Snapchat's
right.
trying to do it too. It's like Snapchat, TikTok,
You do it on everything.
YouTube, whatever it is, wherever you can get the like, because not everybody uses the same platform. Like some people only watch short form content on a YouTube.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
Some people only watch it on Instagram. Some people only watch it on TikTok. Like they don't even have
right.
Instagram. You know?
That's kind of like the thing we're trying to figure out is like I've been talking with my friends a lot about like, hey, I want to do more videos about more technical aspect of how like this stuff gets designed, how the 3D printing works, or maybe um like how to design a bike frame because I feel like there's not a lot of resources on that.
Hmm.
And I was thinking of using YouTube as like a long
Yeah.
format video and then cutting up that video and putting it onto Instagram and stuff. But
Yeah.
I might just
Yeah. You
do it
could
on
totally do that.
Instagram Shorts. So yeah,
Yeah. The longer form content definitely like right now it seems like the only place for that is YouTube, but I really
right.
strongly feel there's going to be a major competitor in like in the near future. And like
I
I
want to say
obviously Meta is working on that with Facebook pretty heavy,
right.
but even if you like look at like what Spotify's doing, like they're started out with this like just audio,
Yeah.
then they're like really into the like the podcast game. And then they
Hmm.
then they're like, "Oh, okay, well, you can put video on your podcast now." It's like I just see
Uh,
it like tearing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
like I
They
feel like
keep on
there's
making
only
changes, right?
right. So it's like
Yeah,
once they have the like the the infrastructure built for all that video, and they know how to handle the traffic that they're getting, then it's like, to me, it doesn't seem like it's much of a leap to go from there to like, hey, you can upload your videos here too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They have like, they're
Right.
building out like a way to like monetize things for people. So yeah, I
I
I,
mean,
I think it's gonna happen. But anyways,
I feel
YouTube,
like it would
yeah,
be cool to
long term,
see
long term
long
or
format, like
yeah, yeah,
short video style, right? Like if you, because I think a lot more people are watching videos vertically now. So if you can
yeah,
just like make that longer, right? Instead of just 60 seconds, you have it for 5 to 10 minutes, and it's
yeah,
like the same style, but it's just vertical, right? I think that
yeah.
might be interesting too, but
Yeah,
you know,
interesting enough, the statistics on YouTube is that most people that are watching the long form videos on YouTube are watching them actually on their television.
really, that I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
knew.
Yeah,
That's
I thought it was like, in my mind, I would have thought that it would be like 70% mobile and like
right,
everything else in the last like 30%. But it's actually
right.
like for the long form, not obviously for the short form, but for the long form content, the majority is watching on television.
Hmm.
So, anyways,
That's
I cut you off
right.
earlier. You were kind of explaining the way that your friends and you were all working together to be
Right.
TBD
Yep.
Bikes. So is the end goal like, hey, I think we could actually like, we could do this. We can make a business. Like we could sell
The
something.
end goal, yes, is to have a bike company. I think we're gonna try to go a little bit faster than traditional companies kind of do it. I want to keep on pursuing my education. So as I'm doing this, I want to uh, get my degree in mechanical and engineering eventually. So I'll finish up my 2 years at community college, and then I'll transfer to a 4 year like a UC or a CSU,
Hmm.
and get a degree through that. Because I think education is really important because that's one thing no one can ever take away is the fact that you just have that knowledge, right? You
Yeah.
understand how these concepts are, and you can always build yourself back up from wherever you are just based off the knowledge that you have, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's a really good base to have. And then that would also help me in building bike frames in the future, right? Because for like the dirt jumper frame, I just over engineered the shit out of it. I made the lugs really, really big.
Yeah.
And ideally, for a bike frame, if I were to machine that out of a solid block of aluminum, that frame would probably be like 25 pounds, right? Um,
Right.
but so engineering would help with that fact. It's like, hey, if you understand the material properties here and you understand how it's machined, you understand all these different aspects, how do you make the best parts that are the lightest and the strongest for what you're
Yeah.
trying to do, right? And then like the
Yeah. Because I
forces
mean,
that
you could print those tubes in, let's just say you were using some kind of carbon fiber filament, and then you're printing them with like infill, which for those of you guys that don't 3D print, when you print things, you can have material in this inside, or you could have the inside hollow. So let's just say for the most part, you're going to have some material in the inside. And so like that would be your infill. I'm trying to like dumb that down a little bit. I know
yeah,
that's not like 100%
I think you
accurate,
did a
but
pretty good job.
yeah. So like you could print those tubes potentially with some kind of infill in it and
Correct.
have it be really strong.
Right, right, right. And it's like there's different softwares now that'll allow you to essentially create your own infill based off of uh simulations that you do. So you can run a simulation of like say a jump, right? So you figure out like I weigh 150 pounds, and so what's the force that's going to be coming down on the bike frame, and
Hmm.
make the inside of like the tubes, make wherever the force is going to be the strongest, make that like a different type of info compared to other places, right? And so you can
Right.
like there's ways to optimize that, but
That's really
in
interesting to
order
think
to
about,
do
because then
that,
you
you kind of
you
have to
can
have
add strength in those places by not only your wall thickness, but by your infill that you're using in that area.
correct. Like I'd say that goes into more what's called latticing. So you can put lattices inside of these kind of different things, right? And that's basically what infill is it's different types of lattices. Like have you seen that gyroid infill?
Yeah, yeah, I use that all the time.
That that's like a gyroidal kind of lattice, right? And it's like it's mm, the mathematical equation would be more like would have like a bunch of sines and cosines, and it's like does a calculation and makes those curves, right? But you can use a simulation to orient those curves in a specific way while still having it look like a gyroid, right? So it's printable, but you can have it oriented so that it optimizes your strength to like weight, right? And so then you
Right.
can 3D print the tubes.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty rad. So do you have the goal of the bike like being as printed as it can, or just like using different technology to like make it more efficient or cheaper to make the bike?
what I want to end up doing with this is the type of stuff that I'm doing is very I'd say like bougie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like what I want to do is
Your internet connection right now is not stoked.
use for materials and uh, so
Hang on a second. Let's see if we get
technical
you back here.
difficulties.
All right. We'll blame Elon Musk for
I
Starlink
see
not
here.
being 100%, right?
There we go.
Let's see. Have you caught up yet? Let's see.
Hey, am I good now?
Yeah, I think you're good now. Go ahead and start back over with what you were just explaining.
Can you hear me? All right, cool. So, like maybe not quite the next version, but in the next couple versions of the bike, I want to use magnetic materials. Um, Still having some difficulties.
Yeah, we're definitely having some lag issues at this point. Well, that's a drag.
Let's see.
Usually the
Pretty well.
maybe once the
Still.
the wave of internet traffic in your area goes down, maybe things will be better. Are you able to hear me right now?
I'm kind of surprised though, because there's not many people in the office. Yeah. No, I'm good.
All right. It seems like we're good now.
I mean,
Go
like my
ahead
end's
now.
pretty good.
Yeah. Let's go for it again then.
Okay, cool. So I mentioned just now, like I want to use magnesium in canal and to man. As soon as I start
It's
back
like
up,
it's
this
fine.
gets really
Yeah,
bad.
it's fine if we don't
Every single time.
talk. This is the
Right.
beauty of the internet. One of these days.
All right. Dude, my dad always says, like, he's a big software guy. But he says technology is great when it works. It sucks when it doesn't work. It's the worst thing ever, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. I think we're pretty stable now.
I'm hoping. As soon as you start your sentence, we're gonna find out real quick.
Seems it seems like we're doing all right. It's laggy on my end, but no. Now we just froze up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We sound like we're
All right.
I don't know how much. I'm gonna talk about this just for a minute, and we'll give it a second. So basically, to kind of recap what's going on here, you decide to be into 3D printing when you're a young kid. You're going to school for it, or you're going to school for like an engineering program high school. You then get turned on to more 3D printing. You decide to get your GED and drop out of high school and start going to college. You start going to college during COVID. You get a mountain bike, or you get it more into mountain biking and cycling, and you find yourself at a spot where you're like, I want to make this bike and go to Sea Otter and see if I can drum up some interest. Does that sound pretty accurate? I think I completely
That
lost him.
sounds 100% accurate.
Yeah, you're definitely lagging pretty far behind me. So that's a bummer, because this was a really fun conversation. So let's test it one more time.
Let's hey, do you think if I leave and come back it'll be fun?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and talk for a minute while ever you drop off. And we'll give it a shot. So those of you guys that are just listening to me right now, I'm going to take this interjection or this moment to go ahead and throw it out there that I would love for you guys to help me out with that e-bike thing. It really means a lot to me to help other veterans, and mental health is definitely with veterans is definitely a problem. You may or may not know there's a statistic that 22 veterans commit suicide every day. So what Disconnect to Reconnect is doing for veterans mental health is really good. You know, it's getting them out to do things, and obviously the mountain biking side of it for me is just super fun, and I enjoy that. And it's my own personal, like, I call it single track therapy. So if you haven't checked out that video on my YouTube channel, Biker, not on the Biker Bar channel, but the Biker channel, there's a video on there that the thumbnail says something to the effect of I'm disabled. And because of that video, we've been drumming up a lot of support to buy these e-bikes that we need for to be able to impact more veterans. You know, some veterans are never mountain bikes, so obviously the fitness is one part, and some of them are maybe have an amputee or are an amputee of some sort, you know, so it definitely like levels the playing field for them and makes it so that they can get out there. So consider swinging by the Disconnected Reconnect website. It's d2rvets.com, and there's an e-bike fundraiser on there. So let's see if Dylan has solved his internet issues. How's it going, Dylan?
Pretty good. I think uh how's the speakers coming along? Is it pretty still or still lagging?
You lagged for just a second, but let's just keep talking. Let's see what happens. So, do you remember what you were talking about before you had all this problem? We had all these problems. Yeah, it seems like you're done, dude. What we can do is we can get together and we can get ourselves another date set up in the future, and we can talk again, because I think at the end of the day, it's super interesting what you're doing. So, and there's definitely a lot more conversation to have. So, do you happen to have another like Wi-Fi network or something?
I think the goal is definitely to make like a company, and it would be awesome to just do an update later in the future. Hard.
Yeah, for sure. So in the meantime, those of you guys that have been listening and thought that what we're talking about is interesting, and you'd like to keep up with what's going on with Dylan, definitely swing by his Instagram. So it's TBD Bikes, and it's also, if you go to my Instagram today or here in the near future, you can see the post that I put up for this, and otherwise definitely, yeah, TBD Bikes on Instagram. And I really appreciate everybody listening. Honestly, I apologize that I took a break and didn't really put it out there why I was taking a break, but it is what it is. Here we are, rolling into the every time I take a break, I just call it a new season. So anyways, so it was really fun having you on Dylan. Honestly, I had a great time chatting with you, and it's really interesting what you're doing. And I think that anybody that's made it this far in the podcast definitely feels the same way. There's definitely a future for you in engineering, for sure, and if hopefully in bikes, and maybe you change things for all of us. So really thanks, appreciate your time, and all of you out there appreciate all your time as well. And remember one thing, if there's only one thing that you get out of this entire thing, is it only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.